The 13th Station. The body of Jesus is taken down from the cross. Although the New Testament does not state it explicitly, it is very likely indeed that when the body of Jesus was taken down from the cross, his mother Mary received it into her arms. For this reason, most iconography of this station prominently features Mary holding the dead Christ. As the Pietà, it is a very powerful icon in its own right. Observed at a merely human level, this is the tragedy of a mother present at the cruel execution of her son. Her pain, like that of countless other mothers and fathers present at the death of their child, was real and immense. But it is wrong, I think, to limit our reflection to this level. Rather, we are invited to view Mary's place at the foot of the cross in the light of faith, even with Mary's own faith, and in the light of the words of her son to her from the cross. Mary stood at the foot of the cross and received the dead body of Jesus with faith. Since the Annunciation, Mary had believed that God would fulfill his plan of salvation for his people through Jesus. She had not lost that faith, though in lots of ways it had been tested. Indeed, that testing had deepened her faith, clarified it, and grown it. And so she remained at the foot of the cross, not scandalized, but continuing to believe and to hope and to love and to trust. Her faith told her, God must still be at work in Jesus. As such, she offered Jesus comfort, though she also knew real pain. And knowing this, she also in her heart renewed her self-offering to the work he had to undertake. Behold the handmaid of the Lord, let it be done to me according to your word. And the Word had spoken again, spoken himself, giving her a new role. Mother, behold your son. Accepting and consenting to the earthly loss of the son born of her own flesh, she was asked to be the spiritual mother of the beloved disciple. Jesus had talked of mothering, and particularly of childbirth, at the Last Supper. He had said that the pain of suffering is endured for the sake of giving birth and the sake of new life. Its sorrow gives way to joy as new life emerges. The new life of which he spoke was that of the resurrection, and also belief in and experience of resurrection. Jesus suffered to bring in the resurrection. His individual suffering ended with his death, and it would lead to the resurrection of all. It is accomplished, he exclaimed as he was dying. But the suffering of Mary was not over. She continued to suffer because, having beheld his suffering, she now touches, she now feels the broken but dead and cold body of Jesus. She suffers because she has been asked to be the spiritual mother of the beloved disciple, and so to bring him, to birth him, so to speak, into the resurrection faith. and this has not yet happened. The Gospel records him coming to such faith at the empty tomb, the first of the apostles to come to such faith, it seems. So her spiritual mothering, if marked by some pain, was indeed fruitful. And if marked by pain, it was also marked by some element of joy and hope in the promises of God, the God of resurrection and life. She could rightly take up the words later penned by St. Paul. It makes me happy to be suffering for you now, and in my own body to make up all the hardships that still have to be undergone by Christ for the sake of his body, the Church. It is now the Church that suffers in our time. It is believers who suffer for the sake of the gospel and its work in giving birth and life to new members. But since the Church is the body of Christ and its believers are members of Christ, they share in the life of Christ, and he, in a mysterious way, shares in their suffering. Insofar as the Church gives birth to believers, the Church and her members suffer the pains of childbirth. St. Paul even compared himself to a mother. And we too are called to share in this role. Mary led the way and is our model in this birthing and mothering, including its aspect of suffering. Let me end by pointing to 3 features of this. Firstly, Mary holds the dead Christ, adding to her own suffering. But she shows us how to embrace him in faith, and so how to embrace our suffering in hope of it too being fruitful. Secondly, Mary's vocation to be a spiritual mother embraces all believers as her children. In extending her arms to receive the dead Christ, she also embraces us and invites us to draw near to her and to her pierced Son. And through her presence, through her love, through her prayers, but also through her suffering, she beckons us to enter Christ's body and receive its life. And finally, with Jesus, Mary invites us to share in that work of giving birth, bringing others to enter the side of Christ and receive life from him. In doing this, we too will suffer, but also know great joy. We